Hi, I'm Mara Webster with In Creative Company, and so thrilled to be joined by today's wonderful guest, Alix Lapri, to talk all about her television show, Power Book 2 Ghost. And I wanted to start by talking about the energy that you've really forged into this character when you first developed her, because you developed her with this really confident and dominant energy that really sears through in a lot of scenes and a lot of different storylines, and now we get to learn the genesis and the reason for a lot of that. But when you were first developing her, was that a key component that was always really important to who she was for you?
Yeah, she was always meant to be very dominant and in charge and confident. She really just owns whatever room that she walks into. That was always sort of a thing for me, but it was really beautiful the way it evolved because in season 6, it was sort of more an undertone. She had this innocence to her, but was still very much so running the show. And it just increasingly progressed over the seasons. And now with coming season 2, it's absolutely front and center.
Yeah.
It's so
And,
much fun.
and also with the evolution of taking a character and developing her and then coming into a series regular role with her and that evolution as well, has that allowed you to really uncover layers and aspects of her that are even a discovery for you? Or is it really more about enhancing a lot of ideas that you had for her as a character that you're now getting to bring to screen for us?
Well, Courtney Kemp had such a incredible vision for Effie, just me coming into it. So we have a lot of talks about what we see for her, and she had her specific things that she really wanted to make sure that I sold. And so with that, it was just always like you said, that sort of boss woman, the girl that doesn't need saving, very dominant and in control. And everything else was just sort of, little quirks I would add to her here and there. I feel like she sort of has this mystique to her. She's very mysterious. She comes in and out, and there's also like an underlying, I think, like a sex appeal that's really interesting because she wears a lot of masculine clothes. She's always in sweatpants and tight braids, and she has a boyish charm to her. But it's crazy because the guys they just love it. She has a very underlying sex appeal that I think is really beautiful too.
Yeah. And I love that mystique that you were talking about. And it's interesting to play to that now that we get more details, we get more information about her as a character. And yet that mystique is kind of always lingering there. Is that
Yeah,
something that you're consciously thinking about and trying to play to make sure that you're giving us information, but always keeping a little bit on the side?
absolutely. I think it's very similar to who I am in real life in the sense that I never say everything I know. And anything I do say, even if it feels personal, is only what I want someone to know. So I bring that into the character with her. She's the same way. That mystique I think comes in the sense that she knows it's not smart to give up all of her information, and that's the way that she carries herself.
Yeah. And you were talking before about conversations that you had with Courtney Kemp at the beginning of forming this character and coming onto the show. What's been the evolution for you in terms of the types of conversations that you have about character now with the creative team, with the directors that you're working on with the show, and the space of autonomy that you really get that opportunity to have with a character the longer you carry them on a series?
Yeah, well, we're getting more into her layers. We've only sort of seen that serious side from her. So even the most recent episode 4 that just came out, we sort of seen like a little. She was like her heart was sort of melting from this giant block of ice it's covered in. She laughed for once, and so it's really fun being able to grow with the writers. They're so good at what they do, and I'm really excited to see how it carries on for the rest of the season. We're definitely in for a ride. It's very much so going to be a roller coaster with her. And by the end of the season, I feel like everyone is just going to be like, what is going on with her? She needs to have a chill pill.
And you were mentioning the idea of her heart, and you've kind of mentioned before how you've always wanted to play her as someone who does have a lot of heart, but we just don't necessarily get to see that because she has so many guardrails up
Yeah.
around her.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a real form of survivalism and self-protection for her. And so when you first kind of going back to when you first constructed her as a character, what was that journey for you in really making sure that that side of her came through and that the heart came through, even with all the resistances that come up and the way that she does keep people at a distance?
I think it starts with her parents. We just kind of got a glimpse of that in this last episode too. Her parents are a very, very sensitive subject for her. She doesn't have the love that a lot of other people do. You know, even Diana, even though Monet is this crazy, crazy protective, strict parent, she still has a lot of love for Diana, but Effie never got that. So I think that that's one of the most driving forces I use for her. And then two, she is making this life for herself. Whereas, you know, Brayden comes from money and Tariq comes from money as well. With Ghost, he was crazy rich. They lived in a crazy penthouse. Effie had a busted up phone and terrible shoes. She only got to this school because she was smart enough, and she has no money. So everything that she has now, she's creating for herself. So she has a lot of heart in that way. She just really does whatever needs to be done. And she does protect herself because of her parents. But I think Tariq specifically is a soft spot for her, and a genuine soft spot, not just someone that she has motives with. She does also have motives with him, but I think we're going to start to see how he impacts her over the course of the second half of the season. I think he's the one chink in her armor.
Do you feel like you're always playing around and kind of almost creating this dance when you're doing scenes between Effie and Tariq, where it is between that space that you said that there is kind of a pull between the two of them for her as well? And at the same time, just out of necessity, again, so often everything just has to come down to business and self-preservation and what she needs. And so it really is that dance between the personal and the business for her.
Definitely. It's a push and pull because she does like him. But she's still very much so for herself. She's a survivor. But it just even comes down to the little things that are very, very intentional with me and the directors and the writers. For example, like even when we're having intimate scenes, Effie is always on top. Effie is always on top because they really want to push that she controls the situation. But it's crazy, like the last couple of times, like the time's coming, I even made a note to like, I want to switch it because I do want that to show that there is a push and pull. One day he's wearing the pants and then the next day I rip them right off and I'm wearing them again. Like it's a dance for sure. And it's gonna show even more over the second half.
It's also fun to watch the different ways in which she's always operating at obtaining and maintaining the upper hand, even if it's just within a small interaction. So like the moment where Brayden shows up at her door at her dorm, and it's like everything for her is just about, I'm going to ask you the questions I want to ask. I'm going to tell you the things I want to tell you. I'm going to break you down a little bit, put you in your
And
place,
the
and then I'm just
conversation
going to close the
when
door.
she says so. Yeah, exactly.
And so what are some of like the different ways that you really enjoy getting to play with that dynamic of how she kind of like pulls people in and makes sure that she has the upper hand, even when it's just like a really fast scene like that, where for her it's all about like the pacing and actually just getting out of that moment?
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes from whatever fellow actor I'm in the scene with. So with Brayden, he has big Chihuahua energy. He's just always going so fast and he's so loud and he's like, oh my God, wait, oh my God, what are you doing? Who is that? Like he's always in the business. And so when I'm dealing with someone like that, it makes it easy to have those natural reactions because it's just like, please shut up, go away, just give me the money, tell me what it, can we get to the point? And so it's kind of like a natural thing. It's kind of a natural thing. Whereas even like with Tariq, you know, I feel like we're very similar in the sense that he's very intelligent too. So whenever I'm speaking with him, it's sort of the same deal, but I'm more so a voice of reason for him instead of just shutting him down completely. Yeah.
For you is a lot of going into scenes and the way that you work with scripts about kind of creating these finite ideas for Effie as a character, but then also kind of being ready to throw things out the window so that when you're with your scene partners in those moments that you have that real opportunity to play around with it.
Yes, definitely. And Gianni, that plays Brayden, he is a comedian. He's hilarious and his improv is beautiful. So whatever way I prepare it, I have to know that he's going to throw something that I don't expect. And that's the best part. Me and him, he's one of my favorite people to work with because it keeps me on my toes and we create a lot of magic and we have a lot of chemistry. So yeah, I definitely have to stay constantly changing. I remember that 50 actually told me that this was during the episode that he directed in season 6. And I remember him telling me that, like, you know, just throw away the lines, just do it, just chill, like do what you feel, do whatever you feel, whatever comes to your mind. And he'll tell me like little things to note in the room and like throughout the scene, and just lets me have fun with it.
And he's someone who has, from the very first moment that the two of you met when you first auditioned for him on Den of Thieves, has like
Mm-hmm.
really kind of been there as kind of, it sounds like a mentor figure to you in your career, and also just immediately kind of saw your talent and really believed in your work as an actor and as an artist. And so you were mentioning being in the episode that he directed in season 6 of Power. What was that
Mm-hmm.
experience of just really getting to work with him in that different collaborative setting together with someone who has been such a pivotal part of your career?
It was amazing. I think that he is unknowingly a huge mentor to all of us. He's an incredible actor and he is an incredible director. So he's always just really in control of his space and his surroundings, and that's something that I would love to mimic. And I think that he's, extremely misunderstood. So I don't even think that people realize how truly complex and like intelligent he is. It's kind of crazy. It's kind of completely different on set.
And Den of Thieves also came about right at the beginning of your transition from music industry into acting as well. And so for you, was that project in particular a huge kind of learning curve? And what were some of the ways that you were just really studying and paying attention to all of the details around you and just taking everything in for yourself?
Yeah, what's crazy is when I auditioned for that movie, I didn't even know the cast that I was going to have. O'Shea Jackson Jr., Gerard Butler, 50 Cent, Pablo Schreiber. These are heavy hitters in the game. And so I remember I got there and I was just like, wow, this is intense. This is a lot. And I was really just paying attention. Gerard specifically, he is kind of a ninja on set. Like he is very, very calculated in the way that he moves and the way that he portrays emotion. So I just remember even like during the scene, as I'm in character, we did this scene. I'm not even sure if it made the there's 2 versions of the movie. I'm not sure if it made it, but we were in the restaurant and he comes in and he's like basically like yelling in the middle of this restaurant. And I remember I'm in character and I'm eating and I'm watching, but at the same time in my head, I'm just like, oh my goodness, this man is a genius. So it's really just studying the way that other people portray emotion and taking little things from different people and adding them to your repertoire. I think that's the most of it. But also too, even behind the scenes, I remember at Den of Thieves, I was still very much so an inexperienced actor. So I was really paying attention to a lot of behind the scenes thing, like what language did they use? What does this mean? What is this camera speed? How does it change when you're doing like an action sequence? There's so much to learn.
Yeah. Is a lot of that similar to the way that you kind of, because you've spoken about how for you acting is something that you feel like you're just always studying and always learning with.
Mm-hmm.
And is that very similar to the way that you're still kind of studying and taking things in, or is there a slightly different perspective and space that you take within that now?
It's exactly the same way. I think now with me having some experience under my belt, and I always have, I just really, really listen to my heart. And that's the way that I enter every scene and just have a lot of fun with it. But I'm still always soaking up everything around me. And I always remain a student because just when you think, you don't know. And I had a moment like that. I want to say it was maybe episode 5, the one that's coming up. Yeah, maybe episode 5. It was a big scene. Of course, I can't say it yet, but I had a huge learning curve this day. I had woken up very, very anxious. I had crazy anxiety. Went on set, and I remember trying to push through. The scenes were extremely intense this day that I just happened to wake up with anxiety. And I remember I was working with Shanna, one of the directors, beautiful director. And I was kind of struggling this day to keep myself in the moment. And I remember she came to me and just kind of talked me through it, and we pushed through. But it was definitely like, you always have to stay open-minded and remain a student, because those learning curves will get you.
Yeah. And in the same way that, go with Den of Thieves and other projects early on, that you've had that space to really look towards the work that other people are doing, and they've really created a space for you in that way. now you're at the point where you're the person who's been on this show that knows kind of how this world works, knows these characters so intricately. And so what's that space that you try to create when other people are coming into the show? Maybe they're coming in as a day player, maybe they're coming in as a new character or a series arc. And what is it that you like to carve out in terms of who you are for them?
I just like to make people very comfortable. I did a scene with an actress that the big fight scene that happened in episode 2. And I remember I told her, like, I'm not going to break. I want you to be completely comfortable. Whatever you feel like you want to do, if you want to curse at me, if you want to really push my shoulders, I'm tough. I could take it. Do whatever you feel. And the same way in the intimate scene with the actress, she had to be nude from waist up. So I already knew that might have been a little uncomfortable for her. I believe that she said this was like her first time on camera. And I just told her, like, you know, whatever you feel like you want to do, just tell me what I need to do to make you comfortable. And whatever you would like to do to make yourself more comfortable that you need to do to me, feel free. I think that that's what it's all about, because then you guys can really have fun with the energy.
And you're bringing up that moment in episode 2 where there is that physical altercation. And it's interesting because Effie's the person who instigates it. And it doesn't necessarily need to go into that place. But she kind of gets very reactionary in the moment. Was it
Yeah.
always written in the scripts that she was going to be the instigator? Or was that something that you played around with a little bit on set together?
So there was a question of who was going to start it. And eventually they just set on me, which I'm not surprised. And but it was always meant for me to pull a weapon out, which I think was definitely a lot. She probably didn't need to do that, but that's the way it was written.
And it's so interesting to watch moments like that for her as a character because she's someone who's incredibly intelligent, incredibly logical, so smart and kind of like knows the steps that needs to happen. But then there are instances like that where she allows her emotions to become the reactionary force. And
Yes.
so what's that like for you in terms of a lot of the scenes where you get to play, where you're really thinking about the logical steps, but also the moments that kind of cause those reactionary feelings within her?
Yeah. Um, you know, Effie is not emotional whatsoever, but I will say that when she does any emotion that needs to come through, whether she's sad, whether she's frustrated, it's always anger that prevails. And I call her a controlled chaos because she does do a lot of things that just don't really make sense, but she always knows what she's doing and she always is prepared for those consequences. You know, I'm going to pull a gun out on her. Is it necessary? No. Am I willing to deal what comes with it? Yes. So she always is prepared. She just is a little bit intense.
For you, what are the things that really kind of push her buttons and really kind of get her into that tipping place? Because there's so many different things that it seems to be that can pull that out of her.
Playing with the money, playing with the money. Because the thing that started um, that whole altercation is somebody replaced the cocaine with powdered sugar. And she was being blamed for it. It wasn't necessarily the girl's fault that started the altercation, but she was just the messenger. So I think anything that plays with the money or with the operation, yeah, Effie doesn't like anything that has to do with what may get us caught.
You've
Yeah.
also been able to carry her on the journey of being a little bit reticent to stepping into this world to now kind of being so operational within it that Diana's coming to her and being like, I want you to teach me how to do it because you're the
Yeah.
person that knows what they're doing the most and is
Mm-hmm.
doing this better than everybody around them.
Mm-hmm.
And so, how have you wanted to carve out that arc for her throughout the show of kind of those moments where she's still kind of like pulling back a little bit, isn't sure that she wants to do it, to the place where she's in now?
I don't think that, as it's a little bit different with Brayden and Tariq, as in, I think that Brayden loves this and Tariq doesn't mind it as well, but Effie really, really doesn't want this for herself. She's literally only doing this so that she can make this life for herself. Does she like nice brands? Yeah, but she is really just trying to make her way through school, create a living for herself because she was broke. So I think it's really fun to watch her grow, but it's for a completely different reason. And I think it's really beautiful that the person that does this the best is a woman, because it just shows like I really love that woman that doesn't need a superhero aspect. I really, really like that she handles herself.
And
Yeah.
with all the directors that come in and work on the show with you, what's been your evolution in terms of what that collaborative dynamic looks like? You know, because going back to the beginning where you're coming in and you're figuring out this character to the point where, you know what pushes her buttons, you know why she's doing certain things, and you're the person that knows her more than anybody else in the room at this point.
Yeah, it's different with everyone because every director has a completely different style. A lot of them do trust my decisions, and there's always a conversation that needs to be had if they see otherwise, though. But yeah, a lot of times they really, really love the decisions I make with her because I approach her so fearlessly and so confidently. And it's kind of crazy because it's so different than the person that I am in actual life. But um, yeah, I definitely think that most of the time we're in agreement.
And what's the thing that challenges you the most about playing her as a character, even at this point, having played her across so many seasons and so many episodes?
I think the most challenging would definitely just be that she's so bold and out there. Um, I always am willing to step up to the plate, but I think there's always a little bit inside of me that's always, I'm such a reserved person for the most part. So she does a lot of things that are completely unlike myself, but I just try to have so much fun with it. But it can definitely get a little bit challenging because it just feels so different than yourself that sometimes you're just like, what? Like, what is this? This feels weird. This feels strange. But I just try to get out of my head and just have the most fun with it.
I really love everything that you've done with this character so far. So looking forward to watching the rest of the season that you are teasing towards us. Thank you so much, Alix. Really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you for having me.